Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and get you perfectly prepped for the Nutanix NCP-MCI 7.5 certification exam. Today, we're locking in on a highly testable topic, VM preparation and VirtIO. Whether you're moving workloads from ESXi, Hyper-V, or a public cloud like AWS, you absolutely have to know how Nutanix Move primes your virtual machines for the Acropolis hypervisor, or AHV for short. We're not just going to memorize bullet points here. We're going to unpack the why behind the mechanics so you can confidently crush any scenario-based question they throw your way. We'll methodically tackle this across 5 core areas. First, why VM preparation actually matters, then a walkthrough of auto versus manual modes, some real-world examples with RetainIP and AWS, the sneaky exam traps and edge cases you need to watch out for, and finally, the key facts you absolutely must memorize. All right, let's jump straight into part 1, why VM preparation matters. So here's the deal. Without these specific drivers, your virtual machine literally will not boot, period. Nor will it have any network connectivity on the target AHV cluster. You can think of VirtIO and Nutanix Guest Tools, or NGT, as a crucial translation layer. See, a VM built for VMware or Hyper-V expects a very specific set of underlying hardware, but AHV uses a completely different modernized architecture. The VirtIO drivers are exactly what allowed the guest operating system to successfully talk to AHV's storage and network controllers. If you skip this preparation, sure, your data might copy over perfectly, but you'll just be staring at a blue screen or a totally disconnected server when you try to cut over. For the exam, you've got to remember that this preparation phase is the magic step that transitions a VM from being completely dependent on its legacy hypervisor to being fully portable. A full migration workflow in Nutanix Move isn't just a simple copy-paste job for your bytes. It actively goes in and preps the OS with the required device drivers and runs scripts to retain your IP addresses before it recreates the VM on the target cluster. It is absolutely non-negotiable for a seamless cutover. Moving right along to part 2, let's do a walkthrough of auto versus manual mode. Now, what's really interesting here is how Nutanix Move handles this prep phase, and you need to know the operational differences inside and out. In automatic mode, Move just automatically logs into the source VMs and runs the necessary scripts for you. It's totally system-driven and, honestly, practically frictionless. But what if your security team says no way to giving Nutanix Move administrative credentials? Or maybe you're dealing with heavily restricted subnets, no SMB access, or some aggressive third-party antivirus is blocking automated network actions. That is exactly where manual mode steps in. In manual mode, Move simply generates the prep scripts for Windows or Linux and hands them over. It's then on you, the administrator, to copy those scripts and run them locally on the source OS. And whether those scripts are run automatically or manually, they are doing some very specific heavy lifting behind the scenes. Step 1, they install the Nutanix VirtIO driver so the VM can actually see the AHV disks. Step 2, they execute the IP address retention script so your static IPs don't just vanish into thin air. Step 3, a script sets the SAN policy, making sure Windows disks come online automatically after the move. And step 4, they run a cleanup script to uninstall VMware tools, getting rid of all that legacy hypervisor baggage. Okay, let's add another layer of flexibility here, mixed mode. This is a highly testable concept because it solves those messy, real-world hybrid environments. Picture this. You have a migration plan with 50 VMs. 40 are standard web servers where automatic preparation works flawlessly, but 10 of them are ultra-secure database servers where you absolutely cannot hand over admin credentials to the Move appliance. Mixed mode is the lifesaver that lets you manually prepare that strict set of VMs while automatically preparing the rest, all within the exact same unified migration plan. Definitely keep the breakdown of these 3 modes in your back pocket for scenario-based exam questions. They love to test you on choosing the most efficient migration plan for diverse environments. If a question asks how to handle a batch of VMs where automatic prep failed for just a handful of them, your go-to answer is to use manual preparation for those specific failures, which essentially creates a mixed approach. Nailing down what each mode is best for is going to save you precious time on test day. All right, let's ground this with some specifics in part 3, examples covering RetainIP and AWS. A massive detail you need to commit to memory is that the RetainIP feature heavily depends on the guest OS having specific utilities ready to go. For Windows VMs, Nutanix makes it crystal clear. IP address retention will flat out fail if the Windows Management Instrumentation Command Line or WMIC utility is missing. If you encounter a troubleshooting question where the data migration was a success, but a Windows VM completely lost its static IP,
your brain should immediately jump to checking two things. Was WMIC installed, and did the RetainIP script actually execute?
Now, when you're dealing with migrations involving Amazon Web Services, you are almost guaranteed to be tested on the backend mechanics. Nutanix Move relies on very precise API sets for different tasks, and you really need to drill these in. EBS, or Elastic Block Store, direct APIs are used strictly for writing data in AWS. Prism v2 APIs, those are used to collect the environment inventory. And Prism v3 APIs are the ones leveraged for managing the snapshot lifecycle and querying changed blocks. Seriously, do not mix those up on the exam. Building on that cloud logic, don't forget that NGT is the crucial bridge making all those API interactions possible. The documentation specifically stresses that when you're moving VMs from Nutanix AHV to AWS EC2, Nutanix guest tools literally must be installed on the source VMs. It is a hard, non-negotiable requirement for the data capture and snapshot processes to actually work during that cloud transition. Let's pivot to part 4, which is arguably the most important section: exam traps and edge cases. This right here is a classic exam trap, and it catches people out all the time. It deals with Windows security constraints during an automatic full migration. Just think about it for a second. If Nutanix Move is trying to automatically push scripts across the network, how is Windows User Account Control, or UAC, going to handle that? Is it just going to let it happen? And taking it a step further, does the administrator account you're using even have the explicit Windows right to log on as a batch job? Well, as the source material explicitly warns us, if UAC is enabled on a Windows guest during a full migration, it actively breaks the Nutanix Move workflow. There's exactly one workaround if you leave UAC on. You absolutely must use the built-in local administrator user for the migration credentials. If you try to use a domain admin or some other custom admin account while UAC is running, the script execution gets blocked. If you can't disable UAC and you can't use the built-in local admin, you have to fall back to manual preparation. Oh, and here's that other huge trap I hinted at. To run these automated scripts, the credentials you give to Nutanix Move must explicitly have the log on as a batch job user right assigned. Standard administrator accounts actually lack this right by default, meaning automatic preparation will just silently fail if you forget to manually add it. Another major edge case you'll see involves VMs with multiple network interface cards, or NICs. For these multi-NIC VMs, the exam really wants to make sure you know that MAC address retention, that's media access control, is the absolute linchpin for keeping static IPs assigned correctly. If MAC address retention isn't applied from the source VM, Move just kind of shrugs and defaults to a best effort IP configuration, mapping one NIC at a time. As you can imagine, that easily leads to the wrong IP getting slapped onto the wrong network interface. Plus, keep in mind, if you choose to bypass guest operations entirely during a migration, static IP retention becomes 100% your manual responsibility. Okay, let's wrap this all up in part 5, key facts to memorize. Go ahead and take a mental snapshot of this. These 4 points are your highest yield takeaways for the VM preparation subtopic. Number 1, the UAC constraint. It breaks auto prep unless you use the built-in local admin. And don't forget you also need that log on as a batch job right we just talked about. Number 2, the WMIC necessity. It is completely mandatory for RetainIP to work on Windows. Number 3, know those AWS APIs cold. EBS for data, Prism v2 for inventory, and v3 for snapshots. And number 4, mixed mode. Your best friend for combining manual and automatic prep in a single migration plan when dealing with strict security boundaries. Mastering these little nuances does way more than just get you a passing score on the NCP-MCI 7.5 exam. It empowers you to architect genuinely bulletproof migrations out in the real world. By fully understanding the gears turning behind VirtIO, NGT, and those preparation scripts, you completely remove the guesswork from your data center transformations. So, looking at your own infrastructure right now, which of these constraints, whether it's UAC, missing batch job rights, or some messy multi-NIC setups, are you going to need to account for before you launch your next migration plan? Something to think about. Keep studying, trust the architecture, and good luck on the exam.